All right, well, good evening, everyone. My name is Dennis Bone, and I'm director of the Feliciano Center for Entrepreneurship, and where we are creating this center and trying to create something that's very special here at Montclair and very special in northern New Jersey and very special in the state of New Jersey. If you have been following us since we've started, we've had several events. This one is the largest. Thank you, Seth and Honest Tea. And, but more than anything else, we appreciate every single person for being with us tonight. I'm going to be quick. There are a couple of people that I want to introduce. Dean Brent Crite, where is the Dean of the Business School? Oh, there he is, who is the person that is a really enlightened leader of the business school here and is just doing wonderful things under his leadership and his leadership team. Many of those folks are here tonight. But don't, by my introducing Dean Crite, don't think that our entrepreneurship program is just for business majors. It's not. It's for majors all throughout the university. We're trying to make our entrepreneurship program look like the university. And one little statistic I'll give you is about 63% of the students at Montclair are female. So we're trying to make the entrepreneurship program, for example, very nurturing and supportive of female entrepreneurs. And with our first class, we're well on our way for that. I should say hi to Sharon Waters, the program manager who's responsible for marketing and branding and everything else in the world. Where's Sharon? And she would shoot me if I didn't tell you. For those of you who are tweeting out tonight, it's hashtag MSU.honesT, and make sure there's 2 T's between the honest and the T. And that's it'll go either way, but that's the hashtag that we've chosen for this evening. So it is a special evening for us, and we're very grateful for our speaker tonight. But to introduce the speaker, I want to introduce somebody that's also very special. But before I do that, Mimi and Eddie Feliciano, the name Feliciano Center, they're very generous benefactors, and they're very nice and very special people. So thank you for your generosity. So Chuck Muth is really the reason that we have Seth here this evening. Chuck's the vice president of Honest Tea. He's a graduate of Montclair. He's a Jersey guy. He's been in the beverage business for a long time. Just a real special person, and I want to thank you, Chuck, for making this happen. So I'm going to bring Chuck up to introduce Seth. There you go, sir.
Okay, thank you, Dennis. As Dennis said, I am a graduate here. I graduated in 1979, so many of you, I assume, weren't even born back then. I've had a long career in the beverage business. I actually started, believe it or not, coming out of here as a truck driver for Coca-Cola in Paterson, New Jersey, which is my hometown. So when I hear about Montclair being a scrappy school, which I hear quite often, it's really true. I mean, I think the students here have paved their way, many times in my case, paved their own way. Couldn't afford even to live on campus, commute it. But once you get out in the business world, who cares? It's how much you put what effort you put out there and what you can make happen. And so I've had a great career in the beverage business, but it all began here at Montclair State. So I actually, about 5 years ago, I was actually the senior vice president of sales and marketing at Philadelphia Coke, one of the 4th largest bottler in the country for Coke. And I got a call from a friend of mine from Coca-Cola who said, we had just purchased 30% or 40%, a part of a really terrific company called Honest Tea, which I had heard of, but it was very small. And he said, the great thing is that these are the nicest people you're ever going to meet. The bad thing is, I don't think they know what they're getting into with Coke. So on your way home from Philly, would you stop down in Bethesda, Maryland, and meet this great individual called Seth Goldman? And I did that. And Seth and I talked for a while, and for quite a while, actually, like over an hour. And at the end of it, he says, you know, how would you like to come work for us? And I said, sure, might think about that. It's closer to home. I lived in Maryland. And he asked me how much I make. I told him. He called me back the next day and said, yeah, it's not going to work out. It's not going to work out. But about a year later, Seth did call me and said, I've reconsidered. It took a year, but he did reconsider. And he asked me to come back to Bethesda, and have lunch. We talked, and I joined the organization 4 years ago, just about 4 years ago. And by the way, Seth, everything I'm saying here I hope will be reflected in my performance review next year. Okay. Seth is, you're going to hear in a minute. I'm glad I'm before Seth, not after Seth, because he's a wonderful speaker. I think he's a very engaged speaker. The nice thing about, I think the good thing about the Honest organization is really our platform, and that platform is reflected in everything that Seth is, and that's things like sustainability, healthy living, social responsibility. The things that are important to Seth are really reflected throughout both our branding, but maybe even more importantly, really reflected throughout our entire organization. We have a wonderful team, very dedicated team. You see we have plenty of community events, people bike to work. We provide free bikes. If you want to bike to work, you get a free bike to bike. So really, Seth really not only talks about these things, but actually lives those values. So again, as I said earlier, I've had a great experience at Montclair State, and I've begun to give back here. I'm involved with the business school now, and I've given money, but also time. But the best gift I've given you so far is going to be Seth Goldman.
Thank you very much, Chuck. That's very nice. Well, it's great to be here. I've heard so much about this place from Chuck. He's a very proud alum, and he's always told me, you know, this is the kind of place where when you get people coming out of here, they're hardworking, they're not, as we say, coddled, they're ready to get the job done. And Chuck is a great example of it, and you'll hear how important he's been to our company. And I'm really glad to be here, especially this time of year. So when I started at the Yale School of Management, the first case study I picked up was called Rainforest Crunch. It was a story about a Ben & Jerry's spinoff that was trying to source from the rainforest and create a sustainable business. It actually failed, the business, but for me it was so inspiring because it caught me right when I was just starting to put ideas together, and all of a sudden I realized business could be so much more than just business. It's not just about moving around product, it's actually creating something powerful. And so I want to share with you the story of what we've done at Honest Tea. And first I want to give you a sense of the kind of things that happen to us. So we're based in Bethesda, Maryland, and and it's a little crazy down there in DC these days. You've seen, just last week, we had this woman who drove her car into the Capitol. We had someone who tried to set themselves on fire in the mall. We have Congress shutting down. How is it, is there anything positive coming out of all this? And I want to share with you, from my perspective at least, something that was positive. So at the beginning of last week, President Obama signed an order that helped make sure all the military was paid, confirmed that they were essential personnel. And when he signed it, you'll see over here on his desk, a bottle of Honest Tea. Now, and this is the Resolute desk, the one all the presidents have signed, and he doesn't have a coaster there. I was thinking we should try to get him a coaster, but if I were setting up the shot, I would have, turned the bottle around to make the label showing. But someone said, well, you could just Photoshop that in. I said, well, that's not honest. So, but it's actually interesting. You don't see presidents often, with a brand like, just sort of that visible. And I actually think it was somehow it wasn't just like, oh, this just happened to be there. I actually think that was intentional. But anyway, I'm going to talk today about how we've built this business. And it really is, we call it a mission-driven business. And I consider myself an activist in an entrepreneur's body. So I came to this business with real ideas about what I wanted to change in the world, and the business was the way of creating it. And to help give you a sense of where we're coming from, I'm going to start with where our tea leaves come from. I'm going to show you a short video of that's from a trip I took to India just a few months ago. And you'll see two very different ways that we connect with our communities that we source from. So the first is a fair trade tea garden. What it means when it's fair trade, it means that the workers work, the conditions are inspected to make sure there's no child labor, no prison labor. But beyond that, the money from the garden goes back, that we buy, when we buy the tea, we actually put money back into the community, and it's invested, as you'll see, in a school. That's a very impressive school. And then you'll see another community we source from where they're not even worried. I mean, there are schools, but it's a much more basic level of economic existence. They're having access to, trying to get access to power and to water. So it's a much more basic level. And so let me show you these two videos. At Honest Tea, we always like to stay connected to our ingredients and the communities that produce them. So earlier this year, I traveled to Tamil Nadu in India to visit the Korakunda Tea Garden, 6,400 feet above sea level. Here's the two leaves, 1, 2, and the bud. Her basket is much more full than mine. Once the tea leaves have been picked, they're weighed and then shipped off to the processing center. 2/3 of the land is still rainforest, which helps explain why there's so much biodiversity. The landscapes in Korakunda are amazing, but the most cherished asset in the community is the school that's supported by fair trade funds. In fact, the school is so impressive that families from surrounding communities try to get their children into the school, even if their parents don't work in the tea garden. We were warmly welcomed and even treated to a local version of the Hokey Pokey. Just for fun, I brought along Stomp Rockets, a toy my sons and I have always enjoyed, and we even managed to get one stuck on the roof. We also visited Bengaluru to learn more about the Tulsi plant. The first farm we visited was 4 acres owned by a farmer and his wife. The power only comes on for 3 hours a day in Bengaluru, and it just so happened that when we were there, the power came on. So when the water pump started, it was time to plant the Tulsi seedlings. It took a few tries to learn how to plant the seedlings the right way. Cows roam freely in India, so you have to watch your step. Tulsi is also known as holy basil, and the herb is used in Hindu ceremonies, as seen here with this Tulsi garland. During the visit, our supplier and I cut the ribbon on a new Tulsi drying facility. The farmers can sell freshly picked Tulsi for about 14 cents a kilo. Not that much. When they sell it as garlands, they can sell it for 36 cents a kilo. But when they can sell Tulsi as a dried ingredient, they can sell it for $3.70 a kilo. The new drying shed allows the community to capture more than 20 times the value of freshly picked Tulsi. I also met with several dozen local farmers and explained why organics is important to American consumers and a great market for them. The opportunity to meet these farmers and learn more about the spiritual role Tulsi plays in their lives made me even more excited to share this wondrous plant with our consumers. So that's where we're coming from. So if you had told me 16 years ago, before I launched Honest Tea, that I'd be running an organization that helps eliminate billions of calories from the American diet and helps support the growth of organic agriculture and is promoting fair trade labor standards in the developing world, I had said, wow, well, that sounds like a great nonprofit or a great government entity. What's the name? I would never have guessed it was a beverage company, let alone one that today is part of the Coca-Cola company, and also one that delivered a 26 times return to its original investors. So it's kind of an interesting path that we've been on. And it started in the classroom. So make sure you pay attention to what your professors are saying. This is a picture from the book that we've just come out with called Mission in a Bottle, and it is a comic book. And it started with a case study. Up here in the top left is my co-founder, Barry, and that's supposed to be me in the bottom right. And there was a discussion about the beverage industry. We were talking about what's missing, where are the opportunities. And what we both agreed on was there were so many sweet drinks and so many watery drinks, but there was nothing with 1 or 2 teaspoons. And Barry said, look, when I make tea at home, I don't put 10 teaspoons of sugar in it. Why would I put why would I want a bottled tea that has 10 teaspoons of sugar? And so that was really the start of the idea. And so we got together, we launched the company, we registered the trademark, and when we registered the name, Barry had come up with the name Honest Tea. And so we registered it 2 ways. We called it Honest Tea. We sent in that application for the trademark, but we also sent it in as HONESTEA. And what was interesting there was we heard back from Nestea, their lawyers, who said, hey, you're trying to sell a product called Ho Nestea. And I said, well, no, we weren't trying to do that, but I understand your concern, and we'll withdraw that application if you let us keep honest tea. So we did. And we were in business. I left my job where I'd been working at a mutual fund company, and we brewed 5 thermoses of tea in my kitchen. We got an empty Snapple bottle that we pasted a label on, and then we went to the Whole Foods office and showed it to the buyer. And to my great delight and / horror, the buyer said, great, I'll take 15,000 bottles. Never made it anywhere but, in our kitchen. And so I said, well, give me a few weeks, and I'll deliver it to your store. And we got into those first Whole Foods stores, 17 Whole Foods stores in the Mid-Atlantic, and started sampling. And by the end of that summer, we gave out more samples than we sold, but by the end of the summer, we were the best-selling tea in those Whole Foods stores. And then we took that to go to the rest of the Whole Foods stores around the country, and then beyond that to the natural food stores. So we really started to grow and expand. But when you're launching a company, there's a lot of things that are intimidating. And I want to actually take you through an exercise. You're all students here and hopefully someday entrepreneurs. And I want to give you a feel for what it's like to be in an entrepreneurial situation. So we're going to do a quick little exercise. And one of the key things about being an entrepreneur is you have to make decisions when you don't have all the information you want. That's just the way it is. Big companies have a lot more access to information. They have a lot more time. And it's kind of a luxury. When you're an entrepreneur, you have to make quick decisions. And so that's what I'm going to ask you to do. I'm going to ask you a question. There will be a prize. The winner gets we have an Honest Tea t-shirt here. And I'm going to reward the students who chose to sit in the front. So I'm going to go to one, not yet, you have to win. So I'm going to ask a student from this section, a student from this section, and from that section, one question. No help from Chuck, by the way, over there. And so I'll give you a lot of time to think about it, which will be about 15 seconds, and then I'm going to ask for an answer. And then we'll figure out as a group what the answer is. So the question is, and it's based on this quote, knowledge is the process of piling up facts. Wisdom lies in their simplification. So you're in college, you're gaining lots of knowledge. The test is, how can you convert your knowledge into wisdom? How can you figure out, it's not just putting facts in your head, how do you apply it to actually make decisions? And so when I wanted to launch Honest Tea, I felt like I know nothing about the beverage industry. My only experience was that I drank beverages. And so a lot of things seemed very complicated. And my co-founder, Barry, said, well, what's so complicated? Just break everything down into its smallest parts. So the question is, you see here this bottle of honey green tea, which is our top seller. And the question I'm going to ask is, how much do you think it costs to make one bottle of honey green tea? And I'll give you 15 seconds. And then I'm going to ask one person from each row for the answer. So just think about it. You don't have to yell it out. Just think about what would that be? What would that cost be?